Ongoing support.
Ongoing support is completely as needed. I mean, we're not going to charge you for support. We are here to help make this a positive experience. Anything you need, we're here for you. So,
Through the chair?
Yeah.
Nate, could you, I don't think you told us your credentials where you went to school.
sure. Yeah,
Your 18 members.
Yeah. I attended Stanford University for 3 years, studying electrical engineering. While I was at Stanford, co-founded a nonprofit organization called California Common Sense, and through that nonprofit worked extensively with members of the state assembly, and we're helping them collect data from various cities and counties across the state. Through that work, discovered a need for better software in this space, and then founded OpenGov 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, 2 questions. In terms of support, is it telephone or online?
We can do whatever you want.
So there's a number that's published that any user can call?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody can call us anytime.
Okay. And in terms of drilling down and organizing the granularity of timeframes, can you, I assume that's based on what you're provided. If information is provided on a monthly basis, then you can do monthly comparisons, or
Correct.
you can cut and paste it as you want in terms of comparing 2-month or 3-month periods to prior periods, that kind of thing.
Yes, that's correct. It's however much you want to put in, and then what time period you want to go look at and explore. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Nate, how long before we provide you information does it get up?
It's a week after we get the data. The site will be built.
I think it's great.
Thank you.
I was dazzled at the finance committee that, this is, available to us. And does it show in here how much it is in the staff report?
Yeah, it'll cost us less than $3,000 a year.
On
Correct.
one? No, for a year.
Correct.
I mean, that's amazing. It really is a great service. I think our residents will really love it, And so, talking about transparency, because going through the budget, even online, and looking at it and trying to, compare and contrast, it's difficult. So, this is great. I'm all for it. This is within your budget.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need any direction from the council. We just wanted OpenGov to come to the council and at least show the council firsthand in any community that might be watching or participating what's coming.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
great.
Any other questions?
It's an ASP, right? I mean, you're providing the software, we don't own anything, we're not
Oh,
hosting it.
yes, correct.
You're just putting a link onto our website.
That's correct. It's a completely hosted solution, so there's no ongoing maintenance, there's no initial setup, installation, anything like that.
This is for you.
Yeah.
It's all stored in the cloud.
Correct.
That was for the attorney.
That was for
But it's all public data, so.
Great.
Perfect, thank you very much, Nate.
Yes, thank you.
So we're going to move on to item number 4, public comments. This is the opportunity for anybody in the public to make a comment for an item that is not on the agenda. So if anybody would like to approach the microphone.
Wow, that was impressive. My name is Bob Roser, and I'm on the Park and Recs Commission. And at the last meeting, it was proposed that tennis keys would be free, or would not cost anything. And I know that probably will reach your agenda, although it's not on it tonight, at some time in the next few months. And we decided to put it as a discussion item on our last meeting, and the rest of the commissioners asked me to come and just report on some of the things that we talked about. First off, I think the objective of getting more people on our courts is a good one. Okay, the courts are not used a lot. There's plenty of time to play, and I think it would be good that we had more people playing. It's unclear that not paying $150 is going to cause a lot more people to play tennis, but that's an unknown at this point in time. One of the concerns that we have is, as you do not charge for a key, the courts will become open courts. Because people will look at it like, well, everybody has a key and keys are all over the place, so why even lock the courts? And our concern there is that, and some of my experience, is that courts that are not locked have other things going on, like soccer, baseball, and hopefully not skateboarding. And the reason for that is that those activities harm the surface of the court. They really do. And we spend a lot of money and just finished resurfacing the courts. And it does damage the courts. And so that's of concern for sure. Now, the other issue is that Atherton receives $8,625 from keys. And there were 44 keys sold in 2012 and 63 keys sold in this year, 2013. So there was a nice 43% increase in people who purchased keys at $150 for a resident and $200 for a non-resident. The expenses to keep the court, maintain the court, is $6,050 a year, not including the resurfacing, which is more expensive because it's something like $7,000 a court. So we actually, if you don't take into account the resurfacing, we actually have a positive amount on the, we have a positive amount from the keys. And so we didn't want to lose that because it's great to have the key pay for all the maintenance on the court. And if you take the Little League donation and the extra money that we make on the profit, we would not have to put out any additional money. We have money put aside for the next 6 to 8 years. So finally, what we would like is we would like the town council to consider asking the Park and Rec Commission to look at all the options to meet the objective of increasing play on the court, and have us look into that and look at various options, including the pricing, and come back to you with a recommendation in the, for your February meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other comments? Please, come forward.
Good evening, Atherton council members and Atherton citizens. I am lay brother Stephen Gerard, who's also familiar with the Queen City. I'm traveling from Sacramento to San Diego. I've already spoken at the Palo Alto City Council, and I've also spoken at the Menlo Park City Council, and I'm delighted that you just happened to fall right into place for this next third day before I head back to the Southern California area. I'm here to talk to everybody about what I'm working on and to present it all to all of you. It's a new citizen overlay zone concept called Life Peace Zones. I will have leaflets in the back. I will have a little label that you can put on your light switch to help you to remember this for your full year and start contemplating on the possibilities. Zoning law in the United States and in California, I believe right now is limited. I believe the Constitution of the United States allows our wonderful citizens to establish new citizen overlay zones that reflect the unique character of any particular city or town. And what's unique about Atherton is you already are a Life Peace Zone. A Life Peace Zone for social causes, maybe preserving fatherhood, motherhood, and childhood. Maybe looking at gun laws, maybe looking at euthanasia-related issues. Maybe, because I'm a third order Franciscan, we'd like to also emulate and shine that we love animals in our town or our city. These are examples of Life Peace Zones. My leaflets will talk about these 4 levels of Life Peace Zones. My goal, however, is to look for those wonderful individuals who have a little spare time. I would be delighted to even have a lunch with anybody, and I don't care who it is, because it's really the citizens that are going to vote it in. Thank you for listening, for the possibility of a future Atherton Life Peace Zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we're going to close public comments. Item number 5, report out of closed session. We have none. Item item number 6, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I only have a couple of things to report out of the city manager's report. One is the Surf Air meeting was held on December 9th. There was well over 100 attendees to discuss airport noise and its impact on the community. There are next steps outlined within the city manager's report that came out of that meeting. Also, I wanted to report the CBOS project work by Caltrain will begin on January 2nd. That's overnight work where they're going to be doing some trenching. They're going to be notifying the surrounding area of that work, and we'll be putting out notifications via the electronic network for the town and on the town's website. Councilmember Lewis already articulated the 4 master plans that are ongoing, so I won't go into that detail, but that's within the city manager's report as well. And then the last thing is the holiday closure that's coming up. The town hall will be closed December 23rd through January 1st. The post office will be open on the 23rd and the 24th. It doesn't affect the police department, but there's closures of other town staff as well. That concludes the city manager's report. Happy to answer any questions, and staff's here as well.
Any questions from council?
Just on page 6, and the city manager and I discussed this earlier. On the park plan and the survey, which I've spoken to a lot of people in the park, and it does seem that there is interest for off-leash dog area. But I'd also like to point out, as we're looking at that report, that actually the timing of the advertisement for and actually taking surveys was put together to coincide with the bark in the park. And so all the people that were in the park actually were there with their dogs. So I think we got the result that we were, maybe pre-forecast by timing it with the bark in the park, and that I don't know if there's going to be any other park input on the Dames study that would be similar, and we can maybe correlate that, but.
That's exactly right. We'll be merging those 2 data points, so we'll get more generalized.
But I did want to point that out. It was just full of dogs there that day.
That was a lucky day to be there. Any other comments, council members? Seeing none, thank you, George. Item number 7, Community Organization Roundtable. We had none. Going to the consent calendar. So at this point is our opportunity to pull items or discuss items number 8 through 14, items on the consent calendar. If any council members have any questions on any item? 8 through 14?
I'd like to just ask a couple questions of the chief on the motorcycle activities. If that's okay, city manager. In item number 9, there was, I guess, $1,203 spent on refurbishing a BMW, and I do recall, chief and city manager, that we had some discussion with regards to when we were buying those motorcycles. The justification was that those motorcycles, even though they only had like 35,000 miles on them, the maintenance on those was so high that we felt that it would be money well spent to go ahead and replace those. And after seeing some maintenance records, I think that the council all agreed that we should do this. And now, I don't recall ever that there was a discussion at that time that we were going to retain one. We have a couple of motorcycle policemen, and I know that we have now 4 motorcycles, unless there's 5, but I know that there's at least 4. And so I just would like a little bit of an explanation. I know there was a quick letter on, but you suggested that I ask the chief about it, so here we are.
Chief Lynn?
Councilmember Widmer, a couple of things occurred. One is, you probably remember, we did purchase one of the bikes, traded one in, and we deferred purchasing the other one to another budget cycle. When we did that, a couple of things happened. I think the trade-in dropped, and we also felt that we do have an old Honda that we've had for a long time. It's operational. We do have multiple people that ride them, including a couple of sergeants. We decided to hang on to that because the reduce on the trade-in through BMW of Long Beach, and we kept that. So the benefit to that for a couple of things. One is we still have a bike. It's still a bike that we can use if one of the two primary bikes are down. And the big thing is, it's a training that has to go into new officers. For instance, we're about ready to hire a lateral officer that's motor trained, but we will definitely have to go through a research training with him, and we prefer to do that on one of the two bikes, preferably the old BMW that we maintain. Because if the bike is dropped or damaged in any way during that training, we can deal with that or leave it as it is and still have our two newer BMWs for the enforcement of traffic laws throughout the city.
So it's price, that makes sense.
Well, I understand what you're saying, I guess I just, the situation obviously changed, and so, and the reason that we were replacing those, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, was that because the maintenance costs were too high, and so the fact that we're keeping one and now we're maintaining it again is, I can understand why circumstances have changed lately, but, it just wasn't made clear, and I guess perhaps, there could have been a subsequent report to council on it. So, thank you for the explanation.
Well, one other thing, Councilmember, remember too that the two primary bikes are the newer bikes which are being used the majority of the time. So the maintenance on those is less than if we would have continued to use the older bikes. But BMW also had a better trade-in value on the old bike when we went down to Long Beach and traded it in, and then when we deferred it, we kind of got out of that window, and the bike became another year older, and all of those things. But I think the point's well taken. I understand where you're coming from. I think that if we commit to something, then I probably should have went over it with the city manager. Hey, I think we ought to hang on to this, and then you would have been aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lynn. Any other questions on the consent calendar 8 through 14? Seeing none. Any council member want to pull an item? Seeing none. Any member of the public would like to pull an item number 8 through 14 on the consent calendar? Seeing none. A motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on. We're going into the public hearing. Item number 15, identified as 150 Valparaiso Sacred Heart School, conditional use permit, amending the conditional use permit by substituting the TDM program for the required intersection reconstruction. Deputy?
Chair,
Yep.
I have to recuse myself because I'm within 500 feet of the subject property. And before I do that, I just want to bring up an issue, a problem that was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting when I was watching the video of last week's meeting, or December 4th's meeting, and this also has come to our attention about the conflict that Planning Commissioner Widmer and Council Member Widmer have in dealing with this specific issue, because there is one or the other has to recuse themselves from dealing with the issue, and now that we are less one planning commissioner because of the passing of Chair Christensen, there is 4 commissioners, and I don't know if now they're down to only 3 commissioners in dealing with some sensitive issues like this that are now coming before council. But I have to recuse myself because of the location, and if Councilor Widmer has to recuse himself because of his wife's actions at the Planning Commission, then we're down for only 3 council members. It's a very serious issue that we have when members of the same family are on both the council and
Mr. Mayor.
judicial body
Mr. Mayor.
as.
I gotta intervene because this isn't on the agenda.
Okay, but I just have an issue because I have to recuse myself,
The recusal is automatic,
Okay.
and Mr. Whitmer and I have discussed this before, and he knows.
and is he gonna recuse
And his,
himself?
he's going to, because his wife participated, and
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That
They
was
have a choice.
not gonna be an issue.
Yeah,
Thank
so we both have to leave the
Yes, I
dais.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll just wait a brief moment until the room's cleared. Apologize. Deputy Planner Lisa Sanders. That was it.
I'm not gonna stay down there. It's cold in there too?
You're not required to leave the room, you just can't be on the dais or participate.
Well, that's not true, you're required to leave the room.
I'm sorry.
You know, I've got a big jacket up there, but Zach, I love your jacket, thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
The item before you tonight is a request of Sacred Heart Schools to amend the environmental impact report as well as 2 conditional use permits. The request is to replace the required intersection improvements with a transportation demand management program. An environmental impact report, or EIR, was approved in 2009 for the Sacred Heart Schools master plan update, and a mitigation measure was included in that document, as well as both conditional use permits. That included a intersection improvements to address some of the congestion issues at that intersection. And when the detailed engineering was prepared for those intersection improvements, it was determined that the expanded roadway would result in the removal of 12 heritage trees. The removal of 12 heritage trees in itself is a project that would require further environmental analysis, and as well, in staff's opinion, it would be an unacceptable environmental impact. Sacred Heart proposed to replace the intersection improvement condition with an expanded transportation demand management program. The TDM program works to reduce vehicles from entering and leaving the campus, as opposed to the intersection improvements that move traffic along but don't actually reduce any trips entering or leaving the campus. The TDM measures include off-site parking, carpools, shuttles to the train station as well as Samtrans, staggered school start and dismissal times, and bike and walk to school encouragement. The goal of the TDM program is to maintain the same level of peak hour vehicle trips as measured in the March 2013 traffic study. And their existing TDM program already shows a reduction in delay times at the intersections when compared to before project analysis or that 2009 traffic study that was prepared. Implementation of the full TDM program is projected to result in even further improved conditions. I also want to point out that there's a typo in the staff report. It references vehicles. It should be more specific to say vehicle trips. And just to clarify, because there's a lot of discussion at the planning commission level, a trip would be one car entering the campus, one trip. If you leave the campus, that's 2 trips. So a typical parent dropping off a student is going to result in 2 trips, coming back to pick up that student, 2 additional trips. So one student could result in 4 trips per day. So I just wanted to clarify that from the staff report. Also, I think we had a clerical error in that the conditional use permit was copied twice as opposed to 2 different conditional use permits. But I want to assure you that the conditions that you're considering are identical for both conditional use permits. So replacing the intersection improvement with the TDM measures the same in both documents, as well as the Planning Commission added a condition related to the enrollment to make sure that this TDM program is continued over time and is successful. And if it fails to meet the goal set for the traffic reduction, then there's a penalty provision in the use permit that they would either need to reduce the enrollment at that time. And as I indicated, an amended EIR has been prepared to replace those intersection improvements with the proposed TDM measure. And the Planning Commission at its August 28th meeting recommends that the City Council approve the amended EIR and amended 2 conditional use permits to replace intersection improvements with the TDM program. And as indicated, the Planning Commission added that condition, which is included in the document. Staff and Planning Commission recommend that City Council make the 3 motions contained within page 11 of your staff report. I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions. The applicant is here, as well as their traffic consultant and their legal counsel, to answer any more detailed questions that you may have.
Just briefly, can you explain for the audience's benefit, TDM?
TDM is considered a transportation demand management program, and the effort is to reduce trips coming to the school. So the example is carpool or the shuttle service that they're providing. So it's less cars coming to the school. You're going to put maybe 40 kids on the bus and shuttle them in. So it's going to reduce the traffic on the streets.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Dobby.
has Sacred Heart agreed to the Planning Commission conditions?
Yes, they have.
I see, okay, thank you.
And you can ask them to answer that question as well.
Councilman Bedoya, any questions?
2 questions. First of all, 6,000 vehicle trips, which presumably represents 1,500 vehicle round trips a day. I was surprised actually at the number. I see that it's less than you had when you did the study, I think it was in 2003. So maybe you could give some color to that, since we're talking about 1,160 students, and obviously their staff, but it looks like a relatively large number of round trips, just to me, casually observing it.
Good evening. I'm sorry.
We haven't opened the public hearing
No.
yet. That's the applicant.
I'm the applicant.
That's the applicant.
Still.
Are you asking the applicant the question, or are you asking staff the question?
I'm asking whoever.
Because I thought-
I would
I'd be
prefer
happy-
the applicant give you that detailed
I'd be
answer.
happy to have the applicant provide the information.
Thank you, Sandy, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Sandy Dubinsky. I'm representing Sacred Heart Schools. So the number of trips, as it was explained, every parent who comes to campus who has a child in preschool, let's say through sophomore, they're going to make at least 4 trips a day, because they're going to drop off, leave, come back, pick up, and leave. Those of us who work there are going to have probably 2 trips a day, as well as most of our juniors and seniors, because you come in, you park, you stay for the day. But that number that we're talking about is a 24-hour number, and it includes everyone coming on and off our campus, including anyone who would be going to Oakwood. People who go in to go to Mass, leave, doctors. And so that number of about 1,500 cars, as we said, when we did our count, W-Trans actually did the count in the spring and came up with that base number of 6,000
Sure, that.
trips.
Thinking about Oakwood gives the kind of color I was looking for. That makes a lot of sense, because that's a number of residents that are there that are going to have transportation needs
Correct.
that go beyond the school. I have a second question, Sandy, while you're up. I noticed that in the comparison of the data in terms of I think it's the intersection delays, in 2009 versus 2013, that in 2009 there was, I don't know, whatever it is, about 10 minutes, 536 seconds of delay, compared to 37.4 seconds 4 years later. That's a dramatic drop. What do you attribute that to?
Well, the school itself, we've done quite a bit of educating our faculty, staff, and parents, and explaining the seriousness of, increased traffic. The other thing is, it's difficult to know, other than counting who's coming onto our campus, it's difficult to know how much of the traffic is attributable strictly to Sacred Heart. So people who use Elena and Emily are not necessarily coming to our school. They seem to be pretty popular cut-throughs for people who are coming, from Redwood City or other areas, because they are definitely very busy streets. Not everybody's coming to us.
This question is going to be for staff. Can you explain a little bit about if the school's enrollment goes up and the numbers of trips increase greater than the required amount, so they exceed the amount? Can you explain a little bit so that we can get a little clarity on that?
Well, we do have a school enrollment cap, so if they wanted to increase the enrollment, they're gonna need to have a request before the planning commission. But I think you're talking specifically about the condition that was added by the planning commission to ensure that they meet their targeted on the TDM program.
Correct.
So through the annual master plan process that the school submits to the planning commission, they're also going to submit a traffic study. And that traffic study would be something that the school pays for, but the town contracts with to ensure that it's an independent study. So we'll look at that every year to ensure that it complies with their targeted goals. There's some specific targets in here that if they fail to meet it in the first year, they kind of have another grace period to make sure they meet it. And if they fail to meet it after, how many years is it? By 2016, I think then we start to do a reduction. And it's a percentage, 25% reduction the first year, 40% after that. So we start working on reducing that enrollment. And that's something obviously the school doesn't want to go there.
So we've obviously worked with the school to work out a reasonable program.
Yeah, and it's actually, right, and it's also similar to what has been implemented at Menlo School.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Any more questions for staff? We'll close the portion for staff and we'll move on to public comments. Please step up to the podium.
My name is Keith Wallenberg. I'm at 97 Michaels Way. My back fence abuts the driveway to the gym and the Montessori school. So I'm heavily impacted by the traffic on Emily, by the school. I have come before both the Planning Commission and the council as a sometime critic of the school many times over the 20 years that I've had my home. I'm not here in that role today. I'm here in the role of saying that the school has gotten it. The school is trying very hard to be a good neighbor, and in my judgment, this is exactly the right course. If we added lanes on Emily, that will reduce the backup on Emily. Doing so will allow more cars to feed onto Valparaiso. In the 20 years that I've been there, the traffic on Valparaiso has increased greatly. And some of it is due to increased enrollment from the schools, but more of it is not. More of it is just general growth, places out toward the Baylands, certain high-tech companies that have more cars coming into them. And what I'm seeing is that it is harder and harder to exit Michael's Way. And if you were a traffic engineer, you would never have Michael's Way, Emily, and Johnson staggered and in close proximity the way they are. And if you improve Emily, it will make it essentially impossible to exit my street in the morning when I'm trying to go to work and earn the money to pay the taxes to continue to live in your town. So I would urge you to take the approach of a traffic demand management plan that has the possibility and real teeth to reduce the traffic instead of merely getting rid of it more quickly and funneling it onto the streets, making it worse. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Rose Howe. Thank you, Mayor Reese and council members, for this opportunity to speak in support of Sacred Heart Prep. As a result of the lower middle school project, I think Sacred Heart had every intention of complying with the EIR our recommendation to widen the street, which is what this was originally about. And as you know, as Lisa mentioned, as they did the final engineering or even the preliminary engineering on this road widening, they realized that 19 trees would be impacted, 12 of which would be heritage trees, and that's just not acceptable to the residents, to the town, nor to Sacred Heart. So as a result, this traffic TDM was initiated, and I think that's the way to go. Presently, they have this in place already, not the enhanced version that they're proposing, but it works. Right now, I think that their traffic volumes in 2013 match their traffic volumes of 2009. And what that means is that they've mitigated the congestion that the lower middle school construction has created, and they brought it down to the 2009 level, which is, you know, a good thing to do. So what they've done, you know, as mentioned, is they've all sorts of measures. They've staggered the, you know, the drop-off time. They've had alternate parking. They've had van pulling. They've had, you know, extensive education to the parents, to the students, to faculty, saying that this is a good thing for not only the school but for the community. So, you know, I think it works. So that's a good thing, and that's the way to go. The important thing that to recognize, and I'll be really short, the school has not exceeded the enrollment cap, period. They have not exceeded it. And what they're trying to do is anticipate their total, and they're very cognizant of this number, and I respect them for that. With this enhanced TMD, I think that they're anticipating the additional 36 students and how the traffic controls will, you know, accommodate the additional 36 students, and, you know, it will make it all work in terms of traffic volume. So, in other words, Sacred Heart, I think, plays by the books. You know, they're good neighbors. When this all happened, they reached out to the neighbors and said, we've got a problem, what do you think? And they all, you know, weighed in, and I think that's the way to do it. So, you know, to the extent where, an example is there was one neighbor who was vehemently opposed to this project, has now been a major donor to the school, which is pretty remarkable. I think that's something the town needs to, in terms of the town center project, needs to kind of consider. So anyway, other neighbors have written in support of this project. You know, they don't necessarily go to the extent of donating, but, you know, they've written letters. And so I hope that you look with favor upon this application, and